Have you guys heard of this? SantaCon? Thousands of people dressed as Santa, stumbling around drunk in the streets of New York City, just getting housed. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Crue Trime. Crue Trime. Crue Trime. My name is Sarah, and what I do here is tell you a terrible story to ruin your day. I mean, you're welcome. And put on my makeup at the same time. So if that sounds like a fun combination to you, you are in the right place. So make sure that you subscribe to this channel and turn on all of the little notifications so that you never miss one of my terrible stories. So the holiday season is in full swing. And to celebrate the most magical time of the year, I'm taking a very short break from murder. I know. But I'm going to reach a little bit deeper into the well of terrible stories and, maybe even bring you something seasonal. I mean, I'm definitely bringing you something seasonal today. So a little disclaimer on today's video. I don't think that there's a lot of kids watching, but, if there are parents and you have small ears nearby, maybe listen to this one with earbuds. I'll give you a second to grab them. I'll wait. Okay, I think you're really gonna like this one. This is the story of the Christmas con man. For 14 magical years, John Gluck Jr. led the Santa Claus Association. It was an incredible charity organization that officially answered Santa's mail. They would deliver gifts and money to deserving children all over New York City. He was a total celebrity of the jazz age. He was rubbing shoulders with the day's most famous politicians and movie stars. So why was the Santa Claus man run out of town in 1927? Banished to the lawless wasteland of Florida. Well, hold on to your butts, and I'll tell you. John Duval Gluck Jr. was born on Christmas Day, 1878, in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, New York. He was the oldest of 5 brothers being raised in Westfield, New Jersey, and John was the descendant of other Santa Claus players, including his grandpa, John Baptiste von Gluck, who played Santa in Baltimore, Maryland. John had a decently happy childhood, and Christmas was an especially big deal in his family. So John was a short king. He was 5'6", the shortest of the brothers, but he had a very serious mustache, and he was very serious about it, grooming it with combs and waxes and all that. John had a very magnetic and entertaining personality, but his stories, although interesting and fun, were always kind of unbelievable. So John's father, John Sr., was a customs broker in the city. And a customs broker is somebody who works as an intermediary for importers and exporters of goods. They help coordinate clearances and required paperwork in exchange for a fee. So John Jr. followed into the family business by age 24, and then later at age 29, he inherited his father's customs brokerage business, and it was pretty freaking lucrative. Did I say freaking weird? Frickern? So John was very talented in business. He had a great mind and business savvy, but his heart just wasn't in it. He was a bachelor, once divorced, no children, but he had a lot of energy and ambition, and he was a bit of a show-off. So he wanted to make a name for himself, get a little bit of fame, and maybe bring a little happiness to his fellow New Yorkers in the process. Meanwhile, the version of Santa Claus that we in the United States have come to know and enjoy. Chubby, jolly, white beard, drives a sleigh pulled by a reindeer, lives at the North Pole. He was like the definitive Santa. Before that, Santa was a little sketchy. Anyway, every year children would write letters to Santa, telling him how good they were that year and what gifts they would like to find under the Christmas tree. And the letter that a child writes to Santa is typically one of the first letters that they ever write. It's often used in the classroom as a way to teach kids how to properly format a letter. The greeting, the salutation, using addresses, how to use the envelope, stamps, all of that. People still write letters, right? There's really no substitution for a nice handwritten note, okay? Send thank you notes. What are we talking about? So up until 1912-ish, where did these letters go? Well, these letters to Santa that would arrive at the United States Post Office would end up in the dead letter office, like the undeliverable mail place, and then eventually in the trash. Gasp! Reminder, okay, this story is clean as a whistle. this week, but, you're going to have to answer a lot of questions if your kids hear this one, okay? Spare yourself. Earbuds. So what changed in 1912? Well, the public and the press started to wonder, what was the post office doing with all these letters to Santa? How could the wishes of all these innocent children be tossed aside without even bothering to read them? Especially at Christmas! Well, after Postmaster General Frank Hitchcock made a permanent change to the Santa letter policy at the Post Office Department, now the U.S. Postal Service, Operation Santa would allow some kind-hearted organizations to help answer Santa's mail. So instead of sending the letters to the incinerator, they'd be flagged and sent to charity groups that would be approved by the local postmaster. In Winchester, Kentucky, the letters would be reviewed and then responded to with deliveries of goodies like candies and fruits and nuts. In the city of Santa Claus, Indiana, the city's postmaster, James Martin, started answering the letters himself until he brought in, a bunch of volunteers to help. Seeing all of this hubbub, John Gluck Jr. decided to seize the opportunity. He read about this policy change and he decided that he could put his customs broker skills to work. He could absolutely manage Santa's mail. In 1913, John pitched the idea to the New York City postmaster, Edward M. Morgan, the Santa Claus Association. So John described this Santa Claus Association to be a pretty efficient and well-organized system to receive, sort, verify, and respond to all of the Christmas wishes in the letters. And I need to put on eyebrows, so I will be right back. Okay, so where was I? The letters. So these Christmas wishes would include a full spectrum of things. Some were simple, they would just ask for a pair of skates or a doll. And then some of the letters were coming from children who were very clearly not in need of charity. So those would be set aside and answered with like a simple letter. But a letter from Santa Claus?
Santa! Oh my God!
Some of the letters were things like, my family is hungry. My papa is sick with rheumatism and cannot work, and we have no coal for the fire. I hope, dear Santa, that you will not forget us on Christmas. Also, if some of the letters indicated abuse or homelessness, it would be forwarded to the Public Charities Commission for more investigation. But every letter was read by an actual person. Tens of thousands of letters would arrive, and the Santa Claus Association volunteers, this was totally volunteer, by the way, they would read each one. And about 70% of those letters passed through all of the in-house filters. They were catching duplicates and vetting the addresses, things like that. So the volunteers would figure out what was the right way to respond to the letter, and they would sometimes hand deliver gifts to these letter writers. Now, responding to these letters wasn't free, and John Gluck and his Santa Claus Association built a network of generous donors all throughout New York City. Remember, all of this labor was free. They were volunteers, and John collected money for postage and other overhead costs. He started out in a donated back room of a Manhattan steakhouse on 36th Street, collecting donations from people ranging from regular New Yorkers to business megamen like William Vanderbilt in the Astors. The Santa Claus Association was the only organization that was authorized to open and answer Santa's mail, because otherwise, tampering with the mail is illegal, you guys. Where's the crime? We're getting there. So in that first year, the Santa Claus Association helped to answer 28,000 letters and deliver gifts to over 13,000 kids in New York City. This is like 1913. The press and the public ate it up. If Santa Claus was just a fairy tale to poor children, he was definitely real in New York City. All thanks to John Gluck. The Santa Claus Association sent things like toys and warm food and even an artificial limb. 2 years later, the number of gifts given grew to like 50,000. What they were doing was amazing and inspirational, and Christmas spirit was super duper high. Other Christmassy things started to pop up all over the city. Actually, it was around this time of the very first Rockefeller Center Christmas tree and the lighting and all of that. So things like public gatherings and large parties and just elaborate celebrations became a thing. And this New York City Christmas spirit started to inspire other cities across the United States to kind of follow suit. The Santa Claus Association's offices eventually outgrew their space in the steakhouse, so they moved into the wine cellar at the Hotel Astor. And then they later moved onto a floor in the Woolworth building, which was then the tallest building in the world. So things in the early 20th century were going great. They were doing really amazing things, and the Santa Claus Association was huge. Soon, celebrities like John Barrymore became involved, and plans were announced to build a Santa Claus building in Midtown Manhattan. It was to be a grand, elaborate white marble structure with a 50-foot stained glass Santa window. So this building was meant to serve as the Santa Claus Association headquarters, as well as a number of other youth charities. It was also going to have an auditorium for children's plays, a children's library, and a giant toy store. It was like almost going to be a real-life Santa's workshop. So, in the off-season, John Gluck had his hands in a lot of different pots, including the United States Boy Scouts. Not to be confused with Boy Scouts of America, different group. This is like a bootleg of that. Anyways, these scouts were doing all the same things as Boy Scouts of America, you know, camping, volunteering in the community, tying knots, whatever Boy Scouts do. But part of what made this scouting group different was that they all carried guns. So the founder of this organization, William Randolph Hearst, was like super into gun ownership. He thought it was important for young boys to be, I don't know, carrying guns, whatever, doesn't matter. After a 12-year-old scout named Maitland Jarvis shot and killed a 9-year-old Henry Luckhart during an argument after a scout function in the Bronx, membership for that scouting organization went into the toilet. Now, why do we care? Well, John Gluck had been using those scouts as volunteers at the Santa Claus Association. You know, reading the letters and all that. So John Gluck was fighting really hard for this organization. You know, their fundraising and recruiting efforts, promoting membership, and he was using his own public persona and influence to say that membership was going great, and prominent politicians and businessmen were like affiliated on their board of directors, and they weren't at all. It was straight up lying. This doomed Boy Scout Association didn't last, and they eventually dissolved. John Gluck went on back with his Santa Claus stuff, but the issue got the attention of New York City's Commissioner of Public Welfare, Byrd Kohler. But we'll come back to that. So every Christmas season, John Gluck would send out these fundraising appeals and advertise this incredible Santa Claus building. They needed to raise $300,000 to build it. And they could do it if everybody chipped in. One newspaper declared that nearly everybody in the world owes something to Santa, and everyone who could afford it would be happy to contribute to a building in Santa's honor. The Santa Claus Association would have successful benefit shows, like fundraiser shows. They would sell specially designed seals for people to put on their own letters. They would sell these Santa Claus annuals, you know, all these fundraising efforts. Oh, including advertising spots in those annuals. But John Gluck was still asking people to, you know, donate money to cover the postage for these letters. Okay, so the Santa Claus Association had been doing its thing for like a solid 11 years before Macy's department store got in the mix with its giant parade that eventually became the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. By the way, me and Tyler went to Macy's on 34th Street and we met Santa. Very nice guy. Look at this. I did not invade his personal bubble, but he did not smell like beef and cheese. Okay. We asked him to bring us snow on Christmas and he said he would do his best. So anyway, by the mid-1920s, Christmas was officially a big deal. Before that, Christmas was more of a private family event, but now it had become an extravagant, public, commercial celebration. So as the number of letters increased, the amount of money needed to support the effort also increased, and John Gluck took care of the fundraising, thousands and thousands of dollars. And remember, that's 1920s dollar amounts. In today's terms, we're talking about millions of doll hairs. But with such a wholesome cause and the overall mood of the United States after the end of World War I, people were feeling good, and they were not asking a lot of questions. Well, except for one guy. New York City's Commissioner of Public Welfare, Bird S. Kohler. He was on a mission to clean up New York's unregulated charities, and in 1927, he started sniffing around the Santa Claus Association. John Gluck wasn't providing any kind of status update on this Santa Claus building that he was doing this aggressive fundraising for. There was precisely no construction or progress of any kind, yet there was a ton of money moving in and out of the Santa Claus Association. And Kohler demanded to see the financial records. So, upon closer inspection, Kohler's team of auditors found thousands and thousands of dollars that were unaccounted for. And only one person was involved in spending the organization's money, John Gluck. Okay, so these fundraising practices were also pretty sketchy. There wasn't any oversight on John Gluck or the Santa Claus Association's funds. What they found was that essentially 14 years of fundraising had been embezzled by John Gluck. Under closer inspection, almost none of the money raised for this promised Santa Claus building had been used for its stated purpose. The money that was raised for the gift buying committee and for postage and supplies, gone. Almost all of it had gone right into John Gluck's pockets. This was fully a Christmas con, not to be confused with the annual nightmare that is SantaCon. Have you guys heard of this? SantaCon? Thousands of people dressed as Santa, stumbling around drunk in the streets of New York City, just getting housed. Okay, anyway, so this scandal was splashed across the news, and public trust immediately eroded. Since there was not a clear accounting of how the money was being managed, Bird Kohler sent in a bunch of postmen to take back Santa's mail. It was like a gang of Grinches. The Grinching the Grinch! They went into those Santa Claus Association offices and filled their sacks with Santa's letters, the heartbeat of the entire operation. And they left the building empty, because without the authorization from the United States Post Office and the support of the public, the Santa Claus Association was over as quickly as it started. But the same lack of documentation that closed the doors of the Santa Claus Association also helped John Gluck escape charges. They couldn't really prove anything. So John just skipped town and moved to Miami and became a real estate agent. He lived there until 1951 when he died at the age of 73. So if the Santa Claus Association was a total bust, what was next? Well, after John Gluck stole Christmas, the post office clamped all the way down on what kind of groups would be allowed to answer Santa's mail. So does that mean that those letters were just going to end up back in the dead mail office? No way, Jose. After things really settled down, in the 1940s, the U.S. Postal Service took over managing Santa's letters. They opened it up to the general public. So a continuation of Operation Santa, very similar to what John Gluck initially designed, letters addressed to the North Pole or to Santa are routed to one of 15 regional post offices that participate in Operation Santa. Well-organized volunteers sort through the letters and send them out to charitable groups, corporations, and regular citizens all over the country, and they answer them with gifts or money or other things to make the season merry and bright. In 2017, New York City led the way to answering Santa's letters online. And in 2019, that program expanded to every state in the union. So Operation Santa is not a nonprofit tax-exempt organization, and the post office as a federal agency cannot accept monetary donations. So you don't have to worry about some Grinch skimming off the top. What Operation Santa does is it directly connects these letters to generous people that want to respond with gifts on behalf of Santa. You can participate in Operation Santa by volunteering to read letters or adopt letters to help Santa fulfill a Christmas wish. Anyone in the continental United States, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands can do it. Check out the description box below for more information on how you can participate in Operation Santa. And this video is going up on December 14th, 2023, so you have the whole weekend to adopt a letter, shop for a gift, and then get it to the post office by Monday the 18th to make sure it arrives in time for Christmas. If you're looking for a fun book to read this holiday season, check out the source material for much of today's episode. It's a book called The Santa Claus Man: The Rise and Fall of a Jazz-Age Con Man in the Invention of Christmas in New York. The author, Alex Palmer, is actually the great-grandnephew of John Gluck. And that is the story of John Gluck, the Christmas con man. This one I feel like was a shorty, but you know, it's all good. It's just a little snack-sized story today. I hope you liked it, and I hope that you are all having a very happy holiday season in whatever way you choose to celebrate. Around here, we are on the full Buddy the Elf diet, like spaghetti with maple syrup, washed down with eggnog, the boozy kind. If you are curious to know what makeup I used in today's look so that you can add it to your holiday wish list, look down in the description box because everything is linked. Thank you so much for hanging out today and for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you want to see more videos like this one, then consider subscribing to this channel before you leave today. I upload new videos here on YouTube every week, and you can follow me on all of the other socials as well. That is it for now. I will catch you next time in the next video. Bye! You are... Fuck. Entered. Check out... Glitter in my eye, glitter in my eye. Oh god. 28,000... Nope. Children. Why can't I say this? Money donations. What are those? I need more coffee. It is far too early. Gluck. Jazz